Hey, and welcome to episode 0 of Parting the Dust, Dusting Off Construction with Caitlyn and Jillian. This is a podcast where we are going to be meeting with industry members from the construction manufacturing industry to discuss a range of topics. Topics we will be covering in our episodes include best practices, new technology, industry news, and more. Our goal is to share with the industry the voices of manufacturers and vendors to dust off the curtains and shed light in areas not always publicly discussed. We're here to learn, and we hope to create new opportunities for everyone in the industry by providing a platform for industry members and through sharing this knowledge. And we get it. Construction is dirty. Every time Jillian and I go on site somewhere, it's a guarantee that we'll come home dusty. And that's exactly what inspired us in creating the title for this podcast. So a bit more about your hosts, myself, Caitlyn, and Jillian here. We both work for Idencia, which provides software primarily for the precast concrete industry, but it is applicable for nearly everyone in the construction manufacturing industry. I am the brand manager here at Idencia and have been working in the industry since March of 2023. Otherwise, my familiarity with construction and the manufacturing industry is really just my dad had worked in construction as a laborer and foreman my entire life. So I'm quite familiar with construction industry as a whole, job sites, getting dirty, and all of the fun that comes with all of that. And so here's my co-host, Jillian, to introduce herself.
Hi there, everyone. So I'm Jillian. I am the product owner here at Idencia, which means that I'm the one responsible for making sure our software is going down the right path. I've been working at Idencia and subsequently in the construction industry since January of 2022, so almost 2 full years now. And before that, I come from a background of academia, so I am learning with every step of the way, like we hope for you all to, along with us on this journey in our podcast. So now that you know a little bit about us, let's get the dust settled and start talking. We are here with Jeff Pollock, who is also from Idencia, and we're here to discuss the topic of Idencia and just introduce the podcast in general to everyone. So let's get to it. Jeff, thank you for coming in today. Can you please introduce yourself and your company?
Well, yes, I can. Thank you for having me, Caitlyn. It's a pleasure to be here on our podcast 0. I am Jeff Pollock. I'm CEO of Idencia. I've been working here for almost 9 years. I originally invested in the company and ended up running it. It's been a really interesting journey. I've learned a lot about construction and software along the way. I am kind of a tech junkie, and what really gets me excited is helping people bring technology into their lives or their work in a way that makes them more productive.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. So what we want to start out with is just knowing a little bit more about who is Idencia. What is Idencia to you?
Well, we are a unique animal in the software space. We're about tracking product data, which is different from using an ERP. We believe, I especially believe myself, that product data is going to become more and more important to every business going forward in terms of being able to, in the consumer business, map what is going on with the consumers with your product after they purchase or in the process of purchasing. Here, in the case of the construction product manufacturers, having a birth certificate for the product is important. Going forward, there's going to be product records like environmental product declarations that need to follow the product throughout its life. Will also be helpful in terms of winning bids as the world gets more environmentally conscious. And then ultimately, the products themselves will have sensors in them that provide data back to the user so that they can benefit from proactive maintenance, analytics that leads to cost savings in terms of managing the assets as well as improved safety.
Great. Thank you. And now that we know a little bit about what we do, can you explain the mission and values that Idencia has at its core?
Yes. The mission is to revolutionize the construction supply chain chain with product data, not surprisingly. And we work with a set of values that are important to me personally, and I'm glad to say important to the people that work for this company and that we bring into the company. And those are integrity. Obviously, that's the most foundational value that anyone can have. Service to our customers and to the marketplace. Creativity in terms of the new opportunities we can bring to the market. Simplicity, because the most simple ideas are the best ideas. And ultimately, growth. And on the growth level, I think it's very important for companies to aspire to growth for all of their stakeholders. So it's their customers, clearly their shareholders, their vendors, and their employees.
Yeah, and those are definitely some of the reasons why I even wanted to work for Idencia, was just all of the, the mission and the values that the company holds, is very important to me myself. So I saw a lot of what myself likes and myself career growth, and I can see that here.
Glad to hear that.
And then my next question, since I am newer and I actually don't know the story, is why is Idencia called Idencia?
I don't know. We were coming up with a name when we moved to our software to the cloud and to mobile devices, and this was about 10 years ago. And at the time, it was in vogue to come up with a name that meant absolutely nothing. So paradoxically, it would be more memorable. I'm not sure how that works, but that's it.
I like it. It's a good strategy.
I'd like to say our other strategies are a bit more focused. But...
definitely, leans into the creativity.
Yes. It goes to the creativity now. Right.
And then, so with that, we know all of these facts, but what are the types of people that work at Idencia? Like, who do you look to hire to build your teams?
Well, we're really looking for people that share the values that we have, because if you are in alignment that way, then the rest is going to work out really well. But beyond that, we're looking for two primary characteristics, which are really smart people and highly motivated people. And I'm really glad to say that that's the kind of people we have here, yourselves included.
Oh, thanks. So next off, we're going to kind of shift gears. I think we all learned enough about Idencia, and we could talk about ourselves all day, but we want to learn a little bit more about you. So what is your experience in the construction manufacturing industry to date?
For the most part, really what I've done at Idencia, and this is, I'm at the point in my life that, toward the end of my career, and one of the things I've learned is that you really need to embrace new opportunities and change and the unknown. And clearly that was the case with me. I came out of, originally I was in the finance business. Years and years ago, I started a company that was a lending company and then morphed into venture capital. In the process of managing the venture capital, we invested in Idencia. And then, as I mentioned before, I ended up taking over. The founder, about a year after I became more involved with the company, decided to leave. And I was the person at the end of the musical chairs without a chair. So I was the one who became the CEO. And honestly, it was intimidating at the time. I didn't know much about construction at all. I knew somewhat about software because of my background in investing in venture capital, and I was always intrigued by software, and that's why we invested. But I didn't know much about the construction industry. And of course, what happened is you take one day at a time, you move one step at a time, you learn along the way, and then you turn around and all of a sudden you feel like, I guess I know my fair share. And that to me has been the most gratifying thing about working here, is that learning experience.
Yeah.
And meeting the people, the really good people that we serve. So
Yeah, absolutely. I've met a ton of great people as well, especially when we're visiting precast plants. They're always so welcoming and so willing to show us that everything they know and everything they're doing, and they always want feedback, and they're looking to follow our mission and our goals as well of simplicity and growth, which is always really cool to see.
Yeah.
No, I've also seen my fair share of funny things in these precast plants and trade shows and all the likes. What is the funniest thing that you've encountered as part of working in this industry, Jeff?
I think it has to be the time that we received an order for a new RFID scanner because somebody put the old one in a microwave to see what would happen. That didn't do too well, by the way.
Yeah, we can tell you that if you're having any sort of difficulties with your products, putting them in the microwave is probably not going to be recommended by the manufacturer.
Yeah. Rule of thumb.
No, there's some great stories. Lots of very strange experiences. Obviously, RFID is our specialty at the end of the day. At least it's how we started and how we got our core. It's really still unknown. And I love teaching the industry all of the things that we know and having them teach us in return. Jeff, what is your favorite part about working in this industry?
I think it is really tied to the most frustrating part, which is getting the industry to move more to digital. It's no secret that the construction industry, being, people are human nature is change is not something that people really embrace a lot. And the construction industry tends to like its clipboard and pens. But on the other hand, when we see them make that transition and they recognize the potential, and you can just sort of see their eyes light up in terms of what they can do with this, that's the most satisfying part for me. It really is. And it's what keeps me going.
Wasn't prepared. No, indeed. I mean, my favorite part too is just there is so much learning for me still too, being newer to the industry, but I also love teaching. I mean, I'm brand manager, so I do all the marketing, so I come up with a lot of the educational collateral to share with prospects and customers so that everybody can have a better understanding of whatever that they need to know. And that's just something that I like to have. And that's like a personal value of mine as well, as teaching and helping people understand. So
you see that a lot in your LinkedIn posts.
Yes,
about I think I saw one the other day where you're talking about having a conversation versus pulling for the sale.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Always just sharing, not trying to sell. Like, that's always, yes, ideally at the end of the day, we need to sell, but I don't want to sell to people. I want people to buy because they want to buy, not because I'm telling them to buy. So that's always my goal with marketing in that way. And so wrapping up closely, we just wanted to finish off by talking about the podcast a little bit more and, elaborating why we did it and having Jeff comment a bit on it and let you know what to expect with episodes moving forward. So, Jeff, what value do you feel this podcast brings to the construction manufacturing industry?
Well, I can see it fostering in its own limited, I suppose, way of creating more community. I mean, one of the things that we have seen consistently is that the construction product manufacturers in their individual segments tend to be very close-knit in terms of, you go to shows, everybody knows each other, everybody works together and sharing best practices and that sort of thing. And so I think this is another way of helping make that happen. The other piece of it for me is there is so much opportunity on the horizon for technology, certainly for technology, but also in terms of business practices, that if we can help share that, not only by sharing what we have learned, but by bringing in other people to share what they've learned from their experience, then that gets back to, our value of service to the community.
Yeah.
And growth, because I think it'll help growth. So I love the idea of you two doing this, and I think it has a lot of good upside.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to connecting with more people in different facets to be able to talk to them and interview them and have a better understanding myself, but also give them, a spot to talk about things that they might talk about amongst themselves, but haven't shared with everybody.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing what we learn and who we get to talk to moving forward. So I guess last off, this is my last question. I don't know if Jillian has any questions that comes to the top of her mind.
I'm afraid of her questions.
But lastly, can you just elaborate further on the goals and mission and vision for this podcast? I know we all brainstormed it together and have come up with what we want to do, but I'd like to hear what you also have to say.
Mm-hmm. Well, the mission, of course, is to help the community to become better for those who are so inclined to want to do that. And also, I think to foster more communication within the community. So for me, those are the main things. The other thing that I hope people will get out of this is our perspective. You talked about this in terms of selling and marketing. Our perspective is to be an ally of the industry. As the industries that we serve embrace technology going forward, it's not easy. It's the change part. So I'd really like to see Idencia being a source for the marketplace where they feel like they can come to us, we can serve them without necessarily having them be our customers or charging them, that in us they feel that they can find an alliance partner that can help them manage through the change that's here.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the way to do business. And I think this podcast can really help make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I know personally, working on the software side of things, there's a lot of fear that comes along with adapting a new software. There's a fear of, will it work? There's a fear of, will people be open to and receptive to this change? What's going to happen if it doesn't work? A lot of people, and we specialize in precast currently, they've been doing things the same way for generation after generation. And I'm hoping that this podcast, we're able to break down some of those walls, break down some of the boundaries and some of the fears that so rooted very deeply in a huge part of the construction industry, so that we can help everyone move forward and not get lost in everything that's going on. Because there's a lot going on, and it is scary, especially if you're out of the loop. So hopefully we'll be able to loop people in. So thank you, Jeff. I do have one final thing. I know when I first started working here about 2 years ago, this is really my first big career move. First starting out at Idencia with sales, and then as a solution specialist, and now as a product owner. But you used to give me advice almost daily. Do you have one takeaway or one piece of advice people can apply after listening to this podcast?
Listen to whatever Jillian suggests. That would be my advice. I think the best advice I could give, I have 3 grown children who are young adults. And so in recent years, we've been having more of those kind of career conversations and so forth. And I would say the best piece of advice I could give anybody would be, first of all, be yourself, because that's, in the end, what's going to get you where you're going. And unfortunately, too many people oftentimes don't believe enough in themselves. And the second thing that I would suggest is, and very much along the same lines, be confident or open yourself to being willing to trust that being yourself is going to help you embrace the change that's inevitable. And I'm not just talking about construction product manufacturers moving digital. Life has changed. And the people that can feel good about themselves tend to be the ones that are a bit more open to change. And then that feeds on itself. When you're more open to change, you get more confident in what you're doing, and you become sort of the snowball of success. And so that's what I would suggest.
Awesome. No, that's great advice. Definitely something, without knowing you with earlier this year, something that I also personally followed through with is being more of myself and knowing that's what is going to keep me happy moving forward and bring me to the places that I would like to be at versus otherwise. So I appreciate the reminder of the great advice.
Oh, good. Good. Well, I'm happy to do it. And I remember reading some blog posts, I think maybe that were written that you wrote before you came here on that topic. And you were
Actually after I started here.
Was it after?
Yeah.
Okay.
Once things dust settles a little bit more in life, and then I wrote that because that's just how it was.
Yeah, and it was about being yourself.
Yep.
And it worked. Right? I mean, you became a very good candidate for us, and we ended up hiring you. And I think probably looking back, if I had felt there was a certain air of not being entirely genuine, it probably wouldn't have worked. So
as soon as Paula liked my platform document, I was like, okay, I signed on the right dotted line.
Paula's my wife. And we met before she took the job, Paula and I and Caitlyn, and she made that kind. And let me tell you, if Paula's okay with you, you're good to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Jeff, yes, thank you again for speaking to us today about Idencia and our podcast, and about the construction manufacturing industry. And also thank you listeners for your time today. You can find the next episode wherever you prefer to listen to your podcasts. I believe I'm going to be double releasing this episode and the other episode. But this could be making me a liar because I don't have the other one recorded yet. Also, be sure to follow us on social media at Pardon the Dust. That is something I haven't actually set up yet. So perhaps by the day of this release, that will be live, or it won't. But just follow along.
Look for it anyway.
And but also our Idencia pages, at Idencia or at my Idencia, to just follow, see all the latest and greatest updates about our next releases, our next podcast episode release, any information on our next guest and topic, and more. So if you can't find at Pardon the Dust, you can definitely find at Idencia, and I will also be posting updates there. So we hope you like the show. We're excited to record the next episode, which will have a little bit more, I would say, value for you versus just us talking about us. But we always like to introduce ourselves so you have a better idea of who we are before you start listening to us as often as you feel like. So Jillian, I don't know if you have any other closing remarks.
I don't.
So again, thank you, and see you next time, or hear you next time.